Alright, Remnant 2. I played this game with my friends, and it was okay. The gameplay isn't bad. The gameplay itself is actually pretty fine, but it's really everything outside the gameplay that sort of starts bringing it down, right? So let's get into it. Remnant 2 has you and up to 2 other friends run around a couple different worlds and fight enemies in a third-person shooter Diablo-style game. I say that because there's tons of dungeons that you can run around and do, and that is where most of the actual content is. It's located in these dungeons that have their own mini-bosses and special items and stuff. There are let's say 10 or 12 different dungeons that can appear per world. Not all the dungeons that appear in a world are the same. They can be randomized. You're never going to get all of the dungeons on a first playthrough. The levels themselves feel okay, if not a little long or a little empty, especially on a first playthrough. I'll say it was when I got to the last world, Root Earth, where it kind of hit me that we were at the end of the game. There is only 3 main worlds in Remnant 2. Nerud, Yesha, and oh my god. It's whatever the last one's called, like Bloodborne or Fairy Castle, I don't remember. And those 3 worlds are just not enough. The gimmick with Remnant 2 is that the worlds are all kind of like generated to be a little different each time you visit them. They can have different dungeons, or they can have a different boss or a different story or something. But those bosses can also not switch up. I will say, if I wasn't playing with people that were such diehard Remnant 1 fans, if I didn't know you were supposed to replay the game after beating it, I would have rated Remnant 2 a 4 or 5 out of 10. It took us 12 hours to beat the game. There's not a lot of content. You didn't really get a chance to get anything cool, really. If I didn't know I was supposed to replay the game, I'd be really disappointed from my 12-hour experience. After spending 50 hours with Remnant 2 and beating it a couple of times, I still found this game to be a 4 or 5 out of 10. It's fine. It's fine to a little bit less than fine, I guess, is what I'd say. I think I do have higher expectations of a game when it has some semblance of quality. You know, the graphics and the core gameplay are good, so they're good enough for me to judge the game for having lackluster levels and bosses and how dull this game can get at times with the amount of lack of interactivity or the mundanity of some of the activity you are doing. The combat is good. You have a main gun, a handgun, and a melee weapon. I'll say that I never used a melee attack at all until I specifically tried a melee build for this video. The guns all feel pretty different for the most part if you can find them or craft them. Remnant does have a decent amount of weapons. You do need to craft them from dead bosses or find them hidden throughout levels if you know where to look. There is a variety of different types of weapons: shotguns, bows, machine guns, rifles. You want to be augmenting them with different abilities if they don't come with unswitchable abilities. You want to have different perks for your classes. There are different classes, and you can have 2 equipped at the same time. Hunting down classes or acquiring classes can take a lot of work. I never got Archon. I gave up. I didn't care. It was too much effort. I got all the other ones, or I got a lot of the other ones, like Engineer, Summoner, Alchemist. Some of this stuff is fun. It is cool to have, but at the same time, it's also not very exciting, because a lot of the classes feel very samey. They don't feel super unique in the sense that their gameplay doesn't really change. At the end of the day, this shooting stuff is still probably the best way to kill things, and so having a summon just kind of distracts them while you're shooting them. Having a dodge ability so you can dodge and then keep shooting them some more. Putting down a little turret that you can pick up to shoot them with, or the little turret sits there and distracts them while you then shoot enemies. You know what I mean? The gameplay doesn't change enough with these classes to really make the classes feel exciting and different. So we got weapons, we got classes, we also have rings. And there are so many rings in the game. Listen, I don't even want to spend my time talking too much about the rings and what they do and what they don't do. I don't even care. Look at how many rings there are. There's no way to sort through these rings. There's no way to save loadouts. If you want to make a build or you want to try a different type of weapon or style of gameplay, you got to dig through all these rings, put these rings where you want to put them, and then if you ever want to switch back, you have to hunt down all these rings all over again. It is very frustrating. It's something that seems really small on paper, but when you're actually trying to play the game and actually try different builds and see what else works, it's very annoying to go through and manage all these rings. I can't believe they don't have a loadout system. Now, I did say that the worlds are random-ish. The dungeons you can experience are random-ish. And while that is true, they can also just be the same thing you already got before. The fact that, and this is true, it really happened, I played through Yeisha 3 times in a row. I got the same final boss, the God of Many Faces or whatever, each time. I also got the same mini-boss each time. That is pretty lame, I would say. I think it's lame. You can always re-roll the worlds after you beat the game or whatever. You can always re-roll the adventures to not have to deal with them again, you know, to get the one that you want. But I do think, again, if you take this as a new player perspective, if you didn't know that, you might just never know that the Ravager fight exists. And I think that's pretty lame. I think that's very lame that is just something that can happen in this game, is that you're not sort of guaranteed to get something different each time. It's very possible you just get a very same experience replaying the game. And even though it can be different, those differences anyway sort of also start to become mundane. You know, the world bosses can be one of 2 options for all 3 of the worlds, so that's 6 bosses, and the dungeon pool is not big enough that you are experiencing completely different dungeons when you re-roll the game. Only a few might be different. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Remnant 2 felt like a game that didn't have enough content for a single playthrough, and it doesn't offer enough variety to be worth replaying, in my opinion. When the game has more content, and my friends are like huge Remnant 1 fans, and they say Remnant 1 had a bunch of DLC that was really good, so maybe Remnant 2 gets a bunch of DLC, the game improves with more content. But as it is now, playing through it just once, I didn't find to be very satisfying. Playing through it many times afterwards never really improved that feeling. It never made me like the game more. It was simply a thing I played with my friends. I don't know, man. As it is now, Remnant 2 is just too barren of content to be anything more than a one-time playthrough with friends. Maybe.